Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who've kept us going for 334 episodes.
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Due to the week is RetroZade.
Thank you, Retro. Long time, dude.
From the beginning.
Just long time, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
On top of having patrons to thank, we also have sponsorship to thank, Manscaped, and they have something sort of cool, which it's been popular forever, but they stopped putting it out for a while. And let me make sure it's the Ultra Smooth package. So it's coming back. I think it launched this week. And one of the, key things of, taking care of your junk is shaving versus trimming. And so I think we've even talked about it before. Is like
if you want that really. So this is if you want that really baby butt, like thin
you
rock.
Want to be smooth
head. You want to be smooth. You want to be just glossy.
So there's dangers that come with that, obviously. And one of the things that I like about this package is that they go out of their way to sort of address all of that. So what are the typical things that they talk about? Is like ingrown hairs. If you're going to shave, you're going to get ingrown hairs.
Ingrown hairs anywhere
suck. And one of the best ways to deal with that is exfoliation, right? You use an exfoliator and it opens up skin. It stops oils from getting trapped, that kind of stuff. So this whole package basically takes care of this whole process. You get an exfoliation with an exfoliator, and you can rub that in. Use your lawnmower first. If you're on that whole Manscaped train, you can use the lawnmower to get it down low, and then
if you're going in like a South American logging company, and you're going to start from the very top, maybe use the lawnmower, to sort of deforest before you start pulling. Before you start pulling up all the roots,
but then you're going to exfoliate. Then you're going to use the crop gel, which is basically like a shaving gel, a lubricant for the shaving to come. And then they have the crop shaver. So it has replaceable blades. It's
it's a very specifically designed razor blade for your nuts.
Yeah,
okay, because
you gotta get to hard to reach places, and you don't want to get cuts or nicks and shit like that.
The whole anatomy and skin down there is very different. It's not like just shaving your beard. So obviously you're gonna want a special razor, and that's why they have a special razor in the Ultra Smooth package. And like you said, you get the exfoliator for ingrown hairs. You get the crop gel for the shaving gel for the apply liberally, whatever. And then of course the crop shaver. So if you want your nutsack to look like The Rock, The Rock's bald head, or Terry Crews's bald head, this is the Ultra Smooth package you want. Before, which we still believe in the other products, of course, that's for trimming.
I use the lawnmower.
This is for smoothness.
It's a good razor, but I still get nervous about putting a razor on my nuts. And so I'm big fan of the lawnmower.
You can't. My point is, you can't walk around with those C cups for men. The kind we've been planning to rock. Without getting really down to the surface. So if you're gonna rock that C cup look, for you adventurous, bold, daring men out there, or actually it could be anyone, I suppose. But if you're going to be one of those bold, adventurous types, you're going to want the Ultra Smooth package, because you want to really look good when you're on the beach this summer with your best beach bod,
because it's going to be buff boy short summer boys. That's what we're looking for. All about that short shorts. I actually got a new pair of short shorts. I've been using them to run. It's beautiful for me, maybe not for everyone else, but this definitely helps. If you're interested in checking this out and you want to get the Ultra Smooth package, please check out manscaped.com. Use our code YoVG, all caps, for 20% off and free shipping worldwide. That's YoVG, all caps, manscaped.com, 20% off, free shipping.
Yeah, and again, this is not just gel and a razor; it's an exfoliator as well. So that's kind of important.
Well, just like the performance package, this is like an A to B to C. Like it takes you through. They even have like their packaging is always on point, and they've got like
a to balls,
A to D.
Ooh.
So speaking of
dicks.
Damn it, you beat me to it. Yeah, Yuji Naka.
Speaking of dicks, Yuji Naka made headlines last week because he came out of his hibernation and said he had been in a lawsuit with Square-Enix, and in the lawsuit, he talked about how he was actually let go from Balan Wonderworld 6 months before its release, and how he was obviously very unhappy with the decision making, and he made basically a big old statement like Square-Enix does not care about its fans, or its employees, which is true. I mean, that is probably the most true thing he's probably ever said.
But that ruins your career. Like,
I mean, it was already dead. Like they had already released him from the company 6 months before his game came out. And in his mind, according to him, from his side of the lawsuit, like it was unjust. So he sued them. Like whether that became a mainstream public thing or not, like word was going to get around the industry that he sued his former employer, which was probably already a death sentence,
and probably has to be a much bigger deal in Japan too.
Yeah. So here's the thing: this is not, and here's the thing: I'm not sitting here. This is not a rally behind Yuji Naka episode. It reminds me of when like some shit went down with Madonna and Elton John commented on it couldn't have happened to a nicer bitch.
Wow. I've never heard that.
Yeah, that always made me laugh. But anyways, Yuji Naka is not a nice guy. Yuji Naka, as I have said for years, and I think we even teased this last episode, he's a prick. He's always been a prick. There is even even in the course of between episodes, I even watched a really great documentary talking about more of his personal life, where he was known in the 90s for just buying sports cars and like kind of shirking his responsibilities during game development.
I mean,
which is whatever. That's
live your life.
That's like petty shit, right? That's like whatever. Like he has expensive tastes and like he likes to flaunt his money, whatever. That is like kind of like not why Yuji Naka's a prick. It's like a tiny little bit, I guess, like a tiny little bit, whatever. But we got to go back let's dive into the past, okay? And a lot of this, okay, Yuji Naka is a programmer, and a good programmer, an exceptional programmer, especially for his time. In the late 80s, he was the one who designed the first person's dungeon crawling segments in the original Phantasy Star, which was a technical feat on the Master System. Wow. He is famous for his contributions to the original Sonic the Hedgehog. He's also famous for kind of like the idea that like don't overcomplicate Sonic's control scheme. Make it one button. Just he jumps, and then when he's jumping, he's in a ball, so he's gonna hurt him. Don't worry. Let's not worry about like does he have to specifically land on character. Anyway, so. He's good at exceptional programmer at getting the Genesis to sing, getting it to things to scroll fast, sloping hills, physics based stuff for the original Sonic. Like
I feel like I never hear that. All I ever hear is people making jokes at his expense. So I'm just sort of shocked to hear some praise too.
I don't want to sit there and say like he never did anything good. He's a glory, he stole glory from others. He did steal glory. He definitely did because he's not really the creator of Sonic.
There's definitely sounds like he was pretty fucking influential though.
He was definitely they brought him in because like they couldn't. The whole thing with Sonic was that, like Sega was like we need a fucking Mario. We need a like a really great fucking like seller like because the Mega Drive Genesis died in Japan. It never took off.
It had a hard time.
Yes, and so like it was a problem, right? So they were like, we need to have like a hit game. We need something to like really make it a huge deal. And they had prototypes and ideas, going around for what the game should be, and Naka was brought in like not at the very beginning, but a little further in to be like, okay, like make this work, like make it sing, because he's a programmer, he's a programming guy.
Yeah, here's all our ideas. Please put it together with duct tape
Put it
and
together,
gum
yeah.
and bubble gum. Yeah, which is all that like a lot of programming and gaming, and I think we've talked about this before, but friends of ours that are devs have talked about like it's just someone comes up with an idea, and then really what a developer's doing is solving all the problems with the initial idea. Like you're really just like you make the initial thing, and then you're just patching to get it. Like a lot of games end up these patchworks of fixes to get it to work. So it in a lot of ways, being a brilliant programmer, it is an art. Dude, that's impressive. Like I don't know how people don't talk about that more. That balances out my image of him, because all I ever see is like memes of how shitty he is.
So to sort of like kind of like let's move along this timeline a little bit here, is that he actually wanted to leave Sega after the first Sonic game, and then he actually got convinced to come back to work at Sega by Mark Cerny, the architect of the PS4 and PS5, who also was a programming genius, who was also doing stuff for Sega in the late 80s, early 90s. So anyways, he works for what's called Sega Technical Institute, STI, which was a San Francisco-based branch of Sega. And a lot of it was a mixture of American and Japanese developers. However, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, which you can't really do because that's a whole Sonic 2 episode, basically Yuji Naka and the Japanese side of STI in San Francisco would pretty much ignore everything the Americans contributed to Sonic 2 and just go and do their own thing. It was a bit of a rocky... but anyways... So you gotta understand, there's a thing called Sega Technical Institute, and it's sort of like there's a sort of back and forth between Sonic development from starting with Sonic 2 on, right? So you have STI in San Francisco, and you have their other stuff in Japan. I think it was Tokyo. Anyways,
well, I mean Tokyo's fucking huge, so probably yes.
Right. I mean, like, it's Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka are like kind of like your big game development cities in Japan,
and they're a triangle, right? My Japanese geography is probably not great, but Kyoto's like Tokyo goes right up to Kyoto, right? Sort of how like LA
it's a
is
sprawling
7 cities.
metropolis, but it's like I would say it's more like Kyoto feels more like Monterey Bay more than it's not as close as LA to San Diego.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't think so. Osaka's definitely far away, but I don't think Kyoto's that close to Tokyo. I think it actually still takes a significant time to get between them.
Yeah, I think it's probably just my own ignorance on it, but like I always pictured Kyoto being fairly close.
They're fairly close in the sense that like, hey, it's Japan's the size of California, so it's a bullet train, right? It's a few hours on a bullet train. So
cool.
But anyway,
I haven't been yet. I want to go.
So we have Sega Technical Institute. We have the Sonic team in Japan. The Sonic team in Japan was doing Sonic CD while Sega STI and was doing Sonic 2, yada yada. So let's fast forward a couple of years. We're getting to the Sega Saturn era, and what is the one thing that Saturn lacked that it kind of needed, that it kind of always was like the critical killer app that it never fucking got? And it was a Sonic game, like a real mainline Sonic game. And of course, there's all kinds of stuff about the Sonic Extreme. So Sonic Extreme was supposed to be the big jump to 3D mainline Sonic game. STI was working on it.
But didn't they not jump to 3D until like the fucking Dreamcast for Sonic? I thought Sonic had a hard time.
Well, sure, but I mean, there's literally like 4 versions of Sonic Extreme that never really happened. For the Saturn.
I was be like, goddamn, I don't know a thing. Okay, but
at the time,
I am right. It didn't come out.
So STI is just trying. Their task was getting a 3D Sonic out, like because like Mario 64 is a thing, Crash Bandicoot's a thing. Like Sega needs their fucking Sonic game. At the time, Sega of America CEO Bernie Stoller, everyone hates him, made us a lot of promises he couldn't deliver on. This is coming from an interview with Wallace. Forget the man's name. Mike Wallace. Sorry. So Mike Wallace from former Sega STI. Wallace said he was brand new, and he said to us, "Look, what do you guys need to be able to do this by Christmas '96?" We said, well, we need the Knights engine because we can't develop the technology. It would take too long. So he said, all right, you got it. So Knights Into Dreams, it's Sonic Team's big game on the Saturn. It you know, it's their first foray into like big 3D game development. So Naka, being a programmer that he is with the Japanese team, when you know he's back in Japan at this point, makes Knights Into Dreams for the Saturn, and STI is like, you know, trying to get a Sonic game going, and then Sega America CEO at the time, Bernie Stoller, is like, "What do you need? We need the licenses." So you know, they shipped us a Knights editor, a level-based editor, and our designers were familiarizing themselves with that. After about 2 weeks, Yuji Naka heard about it and said no. There was a big rivalry between Sega Japan and Sega America, and Yuji Naka hated Sega of America. He went to the head of Sega Japan at the time and said, look, I don't want these guys to have the Knights engine. I do not want them to have the Knights technology. If you give it to them, I quit. So they went to Bernie Stoller and said, I'm not giving you anything. You're going to have to do without. So Bernie had to come to us and say, sorry, guys, you're going to have to do it without the Knights technology. It was a major setback for the project and ultimately a big reason why the game ended up getting canceled. So you had this follow-up system to the Genesis, which was Sega's most successful system ever, mostly because of North America, and they need that major killer app for it. They need that 3D Sonic game, and the team who's supposed to make the 3D Sonic game goes and says, can we use this Knights engine, another Sega game that is 3D within the company for the same system, so we can get a Sonic game up and going by the holiday of '96, which was probably the most pivotal moment for that system's, you know, success. And Naka's like, no, you can't have it, and I quit if you let another team within Sega make a Sonic game on my engine that we developed here. Because fuck synergy, fuck, you know, fuck any sort of like, you know, like coming together or like, you know, branding, whatever. Yuji Naka literally threatens to fucking quit the company and literally goes to the head of Sega Japan and says, they can't have it. They can't have what I did. I don't care how important, despite how important and vital this was to the worldwide success of their system, Naka throws a fucking hissy fit about Americans making a Sonic game on his Knights engine.
What CEO would make that choice?
I don't know. But he had that kind of pull and sway because he was their star
boy,
programmer.
yeah.
He was their star of Sonic Team. Like, this is the guy. Like, you know, we this is like Miyamoto threatening to quit there.
This is why no one talks about him being talented. They just talk about how much of a shit he is.
So let's jump ahead a little bit. The Dreamcast is going forward, right? You know, after they basically like gave up on the Saturn, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this company called Visual Concepts. They ended up making all those original Dreamcast NFL 2K games and whatever, right?
Okay.
So this comes from Mark Subotnick, who was a producer at Sega America during the Dreamcast era. And before the Dreamcast came out, there was this Star Fox-like game that had like really cool looking visuals and technology, especially at the time, called Geist Force.
Geist Force.
Yeah, Geist Force was intended to be a launch title for the Dreamcast in North America. It was canceled due to Sega's reported lack of confidence in the title, as well as missed deadlines and internal disagreements. So one particular day, Subotnick says Naka came to visit and tour the studio, which is Visual Concepts, which was Peter Moore's big I'm bringing Sega Sports back. Naka and his team reportedly took a look at all the studio's engines and tools, including proprietary technology. I would say still to this day, we've had some stuff that I haven't seen replicated quite at that level we had on the Dreamcast, as Subotnick explains. However, Subotnick says Naka assumed that his team didn't understand Japanese, which most of his team was fluent in, including his lead engineer. Naka reportedly started speaking Japanese and talked about which parts of the studio's tech he would take to work on the Sonic franchise. Then, as soon as the studio shipped Geist Force, Subotnick says Naka suggested firing everyone except a single engineer and rolling them into Sonic Team. Of course, Subotnick's team didn't take too kindly to Naka's alleged comments. The only other studio in North America working on a console like Dreamcast, Visual Concepts. As such, Subotnick's team exited the company before the game shipped, leaving him in a predicament. I lost my 5 lead engineers and I've got a proprietary engine. Even if I hire, I've got a healthy burn rate. Would have taken me 2 months to hire, another 2 months to ramp up. So I've got 4 months of burn rate, which pretty much nothing is happening. Oh, and I'm also misquoting. This was not Visual Concepts. This is where everyone. I'm sorry. This is where everyone quit and went to Visual Concepts. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So this was like a small development studio that was working on Geist Force. So I just want to okay, so they quit and left there, but I just want to go back and think about it. Remember why Sonic Extreme never came out and was there for the Saturn? It was because Yuji Naka refused to let any Americans take his engine, even though they were Sega employees, and make a Sonic game with his technology and his engine. So when he's going around looking at other in development projects for the upcoming Dreamcast, he literally looks at this game called Geist Force and sees some of the stuff they're doing, and he says, "I talk about which parts studios." He's talking about the tech he would take to work on the Sonic franchise. In a studio shipped, he says he was like, "I will fire everyone except the engineer for this engine and roll them into Sonic Team." Like,
Wow. Dude is a giant piece of shit.
man is a massive prick.
Okay.
Massive prick. But it don't stop there.
He's
if
not the
people
villain
remember,
of the story, but he's definitely not the hero.
so so just a couple years after that, he, in Hinaka's own words with an interview, the people have kind of like different feelings about how this went, but like there was a time where apparently Yu Suzuki, the other star developer at Sega, the guy who made Space Harrier and Afterburner and Outrun and Hang On and
Made Outrun, cool.
and Virtua Fighter, right? And Virtua Fighter.
Wow. And has a cool name.
So anyways, during Sega decided to invest like $75 million into Shenmue's development, which was not just for Shenmue 1, it was supposed to be for like a lot of Shenmue games, in sequence, right? It's supposed to be like, every year we'd get like 1, 2, 3. Anyways, so there's a story that goes that Naka actually kind of pissed Yu Suzuki off. Because at the time, late 90s, the Sega always struggled on the home console side, right? But the arcades were always doing fine in Japan. And then, according to this is Naka's own words, and then the performance of the arcade division started to decline. At that time, a certain big meeting, I said something to him along the lines of, "I wish you could pull the arcade," this is Naka's words, "I wish you could pull the arcade games division back up again." Well, while he's in the middle of this massive Shenmue project. Well, that really offended him. And after my unfortunate comment, he didn't speak to me for around 18 months to 2 years after that.
Holy shit.
Now that's Naka's recollection of the meeting, which I've heard otherwise, where he literally blamed Yu Suzuki for Sega going into massive debt because he wasn't there to keep the arcade division profitable and was wasting Sega's time and money on Shenmue. Maybe.
Hey, look, judgment's not being rendered on Shenmue, even though I don't get it. I don't get why that game is as popular as it is, but
yes, he literally point blank was blaming Yu Suzuki for the downturn, the debt, the crawling debt of Sega.
Japanese drama is like grade A drama.
But my favorite,
just this guy,
and it's mostly this guy actually, because but my favorite story, and let's end it on the greatest story ever told. Let's go back to the greatest story ever told about Peter Moore, who was brought in after they got rid of Bernie Stoller, and he successfully got the Dreamcast up and running in North America. He actually made the Dreamcast successful in North America, but it wasn't taking off in Japan. And Moore was kind of one of the people who was like, even though he had a successful launch, he was the one who said like, yeah, we're not gonna get out of debt, with this system. We're gonna have to let's just go software only. And it's a software, as I said in a Polygon article, as a software only company, Sega had to turn around and work with the platform holders that Moore's marketing team had spent years competing against. Microsoft was particularly friendly, especially since the company was about to launch the Xbox and needed content for it. This is Moore speaking to Glixel. Building a relationship with Microsoft gave Moore a look at a vision for games that contrasted sharply with Sega's. Moore, as Moore stated, I was going back and forth to Japan. And I was just so angry with Sega that they didn't see the storm clouds of what was happening in the industry. Says, he's kind of like he's talking a lot about GTA 3. Moore recounted to Glixel his futile efforts to demonstrate to Sega Japan that the company's relevance was declining. Sega of America's division filmed a focus group in late 2001 or early 2002 to get opinions from a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds on how they saw gaming companies. The teens characterized Sega as your granddad, said Moore. Used to be cool, but even he can't remember why anymore.
Oh.
Which is what these teens like, because his interview, his survey was like, he went to a bunch of teens and they're like, if you were to describe these game companies as a family member, who would they be? And they're like, Rockstar is like that cool uncle who comes around and he's always smoking and drinking. He has all these wild stories to tell that the rest of the family's uncomfortable with, and like Sega is like your jock cousin or something. And then like I'm sorry, not Sega, EA. EA is like your jock cousin according to these teens, and Sega is like your granddad. He used to be cool, but he can't remember why anymore. Moore flew to Sega's Japanese headquarters to present the data to executives and lead developers. As you might imagine, they were less than receptive. Yuji Naka, maker of Sonic, is in the room. Now, he and I have a love-hate relationship on a good day. And we show him this, and it's subtitled in Japanese. And when it comes to that piece, he just slams his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. You have made them say this. Sega is the great brand. Nobody would ever say this. You have falsified. Basically, he claimed that like Moore either coerced people into making these statements, or he falsified, their statements entirely. He just gets in my face, and he's just got in Peter Moore's face saying that. So I said to the translator, "Tell him to fuck off." And the poor guy looks at me and says, "There is no expression in Japanese." I said, "I know there is," and that was it. And that was, and I know he knows it. And that was it. That was the last time I ever set foot in there. He basically looked at Yuji Naka straight in the face, told him to fuck off, and like walked out of the room.
I think that story you told that story on the 3rd episode of the podcast ever.
Yeah,
and it's still one of the best stories. Period.
Well, it's just this guy is his head is so far up his ass, and he's just like, Sega's the greatest brand in the world. It's like there's this. I mean, it's too obscure of a reference, but there's this moment in this old fucking Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, King and I, where this English teacher's trying to like teach kids geography, and this kid is like, "Well, why is this country bigger than Siam?" And she's like, "Well, England's even smaller than Siam. It's not about So he's like, "That is a lie. Siam is the greatest and largest country in the world." And all these kids stand up and rally around. And I'm like, it's just kind of like that mentality that he has. He has like this childish mentality of like, "No, Sega's the greatest brand in the world. You fucking lie about people not loving us more than anything else." It's like, and finally the guy Peter Moore is like, "Oh, fuck off! Like, tell him to fuck off." It's like he needed that. So. All this being said, this could not have happened to a nicer bitch in the industry with Yuji Naka's whole thing with Balan. Now, that isn't to say that I think he did, Square's blameless here. Absolutely not. I'm just saying, to me, this is karmic, and this is just karma finally coming back.
Well, now he's over the hill, so he's disposable, basically. He's not a rock star anymore.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess kind of like Madonna, which is, I guess, sad, because 80s Madonna? Ooh.
Let me pull from his own fucking Twitter. I'm going to pull up his own, Yuji Naka's own Twitter that he had translated in English. 6 months. So this is what happened with Balan Wonderworld. So, anyways, by the way, Yuji Naka left Sonic Team right in the early to mid development stages of Sonic 06, and just kind of like left the team to fucking sink or swim on that game. And that's why we have Sonic 06. And he bounced around for a while, worked for Marvelous, and then he ended up working for Square-Enix, which he made Balan Wonderworld. We all kind of really know what happened there. But let's just go over what he said in his own words on Twitter. 6 months before the launch of Balan Wonderworld, a work order was issued removing me as director, so I filed a lawsuit in court against Square-Enix. I would like to tell you that the court case is over and the work order is no longer in effect at this time. Square-Enix does not care about games and game fans, or the game fans. According to the court documents, I was removed as director on 2 points. It was executed by the producer, advertising, sound, and director in charge, and human resources. That's important. For first, a YouTuber was going to play the piano and publish the score of a game song for a promotion, and I got into trouble because I thought it was strange that the music was arranged and a ghostwriter wrote the score and insisted on publishing the score of an original song. Basically, he's saying like, why are we going to do promotion using some YouTuber playing the piano, instead of the actual song from the game? Like he didn't like the idea of like a famous piano player on YouTube or playing music from the game before the game's out and the score is heard in its original form. Second,
Okay.
according to the court documents, what I said in response to Arzest, like the main developer, submission of the game without fixing it, despite the fact that there were glitches in development process, that my comments to make the game better are disrupting my relationship with Arzest. Basically, he's saying like game's buggy, we can't release it, and they're like, no, shut up.
So I mean, so far he's not necessarily wrong.
No, and another point is Oshima wrote an email to Fujimoto. I gathered the staff together and informed them about the matter of shifting the trial version. Decision was made by producer Fujimoto. We will do our best for Mr. Fujimoto. Staff applauded and cheered. There's a lot here.
It's a beefy thread.
Right. It is a beefy thread. But he goes into basically talking about like the demo and pushing the game back a little bit. And yes, I still think it's not a good idea to release an original game only to have the sheet music of the arranged music available to the world. I think there's game music that everyone is familiar with that makes your mouth water, and I think that's the original game music. Basically saying like, I don't want fucking people playing piano versions of game music. Nice.
I mean, okay, well, he's a dick, so I guess that's
retweets, likes, etc. on social networking sites were also banned, so I think Square-Enix is not taking good care of their game fans. There was a lot of various comments and very nice illustrations, and I'm really sorry I couldn't do anything about it. Basically, like they put a gag order on him. Do not like, retweet, or respond to any fan art or anything else. I'm truly sorry for the customers who bought my unfinished Balan Wonderworld. In the future, I may be able to respond to you if you mention or tag only me in your social networking sites. I think it's only natural to request modifications to make the game better since we are making the game, and if we can't do that, we should just discuss it, but it seems like we can't do that. I don't think they're able to take care of the game. Fair assessment there.
So far, he hasn't seemed off point.
Yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog was changed 2 weeks before my master up to a specification where if you had even one ring, you would not die. I did things that made the game better until the last minute, and I believe that everyone around the world is still enjoying the game today. Game creators are supposed to improve their games until the very last minute, and to prevent them from doing so is still not right. I asked for a lawyer and tried to negotiate with them to at least submit comments until the end, but to no avail, so I filed a lawsuit in court. Basically, they let him go, and he was still trying to like do work even as a contractor, and Sega was like, no.
Square-Enix, not Sega.
It's a real shame that we released the unfinished work to the world. I wanted to release it to the world as an action game in a proper form, considering various things. I think Square-Enix and Arzest are companies that do not care about games or game fans. He says this 3 times in his Twitter, like, long Twitter rant. But yeah, basically, it's... If I'm reading between the lines here, I'm going from his own words, it sounds like he had disagreements with the development pipeline of the game, thinking it wasn't in a good place, and he wasn't really happy with it. Square didn't want to hear fucking none of it, so they got rid of him. It just sounds like he wasn't easy to work with, one way or the other. Even though he was right, he had a point. But someone made a very, very good comment to me on my Twitter when I retweeted when this was first breaking. I want to quote him directly, just for posterity. And that was and this is what I said, the human resources part of this. And that's the interesting part, I feel, because like, okay, yeah, like a bunch of different people within the whatever development of the game, they wanted him gone, but that's real interesting, I feel, when you see that.
You think there's like harassment or complaints filed against them, that kind of thing?
You don't really know, but it's real interesting. I feel, I think it's real interesting that the human resources was pushing to get rid of him. Um, right?
Well,
Like,
human resources is involved in any type of firing, period. So unless it says that they were pushing, they were motivating the firing, I wouldn't necessarily read too much into that. But then otherwise, why would he mark them as one of the two sources of his firing?
yes, yeah. Um,
You know, the executive producer in charge of the game, having him fired, yeah, makes sense. It sounds like he was a squeaky wheel.
yeah, and again, he's always been a bit of a prima donna. I've met and I've spoken to this man like twice in my life. I've interviewed him.
Yeah, so
Like,
is he a prima donna by Japanese standards, which is pretty fucking subdued, or is he an actual prima donna?
well, when you're working with a translator, it's hard to really. I mean, there's definitely an aloofness to him, but you know, it you don't really. I didn't get any like juicy, spicy things coming out of him. Yeah, Doctor Hives. Yeah, like Dr. Hives on Twitter, he says like the way he tells it, it basically is Square pulling a coup on him for Balan. But then he also mentions HR wanting him to leave as well, which raised some questions, which I think is a very good point. Um, so yeah, like anyways, like the times I've met and spoken to the man, like it was more just kind of like there's a little bit of an aloofness, a bit of like, I don't really want to, I don't really want to be here. I don't really want to talk about this, or I don't really, I don't want to be here. Like, I don't know, who are you? I don't want to talk to you, kind of thing. Like a little bit,
Fair.
that's kind of like digging a bit, really. But like, because a lot of the times it's like he's still very professional. In a sense where it's kind of like he didn't like blow me off with answers. He didn't like, he didn't give me like just it wasn't like obvious that like like there was just a little bit of like okay he like this guy knows what he's talking about. So I kind of tried to push that back and like ask him more programming oriented questions because like when I interviewed him I'm like okay I know this guy's a rock star programmer, let me ask him like what I think would be interesting questions for a programmer. And it was fine. It was fine. I don't have any. I don't have any like I don't have any personal negative stories when
You
me
got no
the two
juicy
times I met him.
deets.
Yeah, I don't have any like any juicy stories to tell of the guy when I met him. Either time. There's a third time where I was walking back. We were walking back to our car. Like that one long walk if you go up past Hotel Figueroa.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Some of those cheaper parking lots up there. I was walking all the way from the LA Convention Center all the way up to there, and Naka was walking right next to me. So it was like a third time. I didn't say anything to him. I was just like, whatever, fuck. It's the end of E3. It's the end of the day at E3, and you are just,
Yeah, you're a zombie.
Yeah, you're like he's probably just going back to his hotel. I'm just like getting back to the car. But that's basically it. Like, as far as that goes. But yeah, this is an interesting thing because. And here's where I do want to shift a little bit and say, like, I think Naka's got some, I think he actually has some legit complaints and good points here. The game that came out was a piece of shit, and he's right, to call that out on it. And him saying Square doesn't care about its devs or its fans, I think is true. I think that statement, that end of the year, beginning of the year statement from Square's CEO is like, I realize some people just play games to have fun and nothing else. But we're also going to start moving and prioritizing and rewarding players who want to contribute to a game's development with his NFTs and his blockchains.
God, what a dick.
So it's really hard for me to sit there and be like, well, he's a prick, he's a prima donna, like anything he says is sus. Sure, but let's look at the company he's talking about here. Like, let's look at what their CEO said in a public statement to everyone in the world to read, in which he's like, in which he downplays and sort of minimizes people who play games to have fun. He wants to turn his players into payers.
Well, and especially when we talk about the next part of this Squeenix topic, the fun side of this episode. But part of the reason why they're doing that sell off is so they can focus on their NFTs and bullshit. All the things
Yeah.
nobody fucking wants them to do.
Exactly. So, as far as like this drama with Naka, you made it really. I think kind of goes back to what you said at the beginning. Like he kind of just committed career suicide, didn't he? I'm like, oh yes.
Yeah, he's got to be done now, I guess.
He's going to be making indie mobile games for the rest of his life.
Well, how old is he?
He's
50s?
up there, man.
50s, 60s?
If he's a star programmer even in his 20s in the late 80s, yeah, he's up there, man. Like I don't know. I think he's like 55 or something or I mean, I could just look it up real quick.
Yeah, I mean, the point is maybe he's just fine. He doesn't fucking care anymore.
He's 56. Damn, I'm good.
Yeah. So if he has enough money put away, he might not care.
No, he may not. And I feel that's also totally fair. Yeah, and again, he made a lot of money, and there's pictures of him in the 90s with him and his collection of sports cars. So I'm like,
yeah.
he was making money at Sonic Team when he was there. Like he didn't leave Sonic Team because he wasn't getting paid good. I can assure you that.
Yeah, I mean, and it sounds like he earned it.
I mean, yeah, he had a series of really, really successful games. I mean, but like, there's a lot of problems with Sega and how Sega ran itself, and he was a key part. I would say Naka was instrumental in Sega's downfall at the end of the 90s. I would even go so far as to say that. Because he fucking nuked the Saturn's success chances in North America and Europe. The countries where Sega was actually ahead, with the Master System in Europe and South America and the Genesis in North America.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So he fucking was a huge instrumental part. Like he's not the only piece, but he was a big piece of nuking the Saturn success in North America and Europe. And he basically kind of fucked around with he also kind of like was causing animosity and decline, during the Dreamcast era, even though he was actually, you could argue, well, he's very much a key instrument to the Dreamcast success. But the thing is, so much damage had been done that even with Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 and Phantasy Star Online original, too much damage had been done to the company. Like they had to, like, they were bleeding too much. So
and
so
that not every game can be Seaman.
Right, and Peter Moore in a different interview, he also said, like, I remember at the time I kept pushing them, you need to have a Japanese flavored, mature title, something to compete thematically, tonally with Grand Theft Auto, and this is what led to that whole explosive meeting. And let's think about, and Peter Moore said, I think it's funny now too that they even after I left, someone fucking heard me, because what is Sega's most successful non-Sonic franchise right now?
Kiryu.
Yeah, it's Yakuza. So yes, they whoa, maybe Peter Moore was right. What a shock.
Well, Peter Moore left and then went on to make Xbox powerhouse.
Yeah,
too,
he got swooped into Microsoft for a while, and then he just
went to his grave at EA.
He went to his grave. Well, I think he was just sitting at EA, just making money, and then he left EA, so he could go manage Liverpool soccer team.
Yeah, just living his dreams.
He's like, I want to go back to England and I want to run a fucking soccer. I want to run my home city soccer team. Okay. The only thing that I felt was like kind of like not like cheer, like rah rah yay Peter was right at the end of his time at EA. He was like, man, like look, like I get it. He was like, I get it. We've definitely had some problems at EA. But to be awarded the worst company to work for twice in a year, he's like, come on, there's so much worse companies out there. I can't remember if he name dropped any of the other big giant corporations where he's like, come on, like we're not that, like come on, we're the worst. They're like compared to some of these people, and I'm like, he's probably right, but you don't want to hear it.
I mean, you can't that can't be your argument. If somebody's all like, you're really bad, you can't just be like, yeah, but I'm not the worst.
Well, I mean, again, this was like at the end of his time at EA. He may have already left EA when he said this, but I was just kind of like, I'm like,
Although oddly
look,
enough, isn't Microsoft the best company to work for
yes,
right now? Yeah,
yes, it is. You know, I'm
I
like,
don't know
he's
why.
probably not wrong. EA is probably not the absolute shittiest company, giant corporation to work for, but it can't be. But it's still not good. So
It's not Ubisoft, and that's all that
I
matters.
guess.
So in the cool stuff, the cool turn of
Yeah,
events,
some people thought this was a bad thing, and it kind of
I think it's
sounds a
great.
little. It kind of sounds in the oh god that sucks, and then it's like no wait this is actually great. Yes, so like moving aside from that all drama, Square sold off its Western studios, basically sold IDOS off, and its IPs. It sold all the three studios
Crystal
and their
Dynamics,
IPs.
uh, it's IDOS, Crystal Dynamics, and who?
Square Montreal.
Square Montreal. That's right. Yeah. So it's like Deus Ex, it's Tomb Raider, it's
And those
Legacy
IPs,
of Kain.
they sold the IPs too. Yes, the Tomb Raider, they went with the company and they sold it to Embracer Group, who owns Koch Media. They own THQ Nordic. Blah 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 blah. Like it's if
Yeah,
you want,
laundry list of stuff.
yeah. If you want to be like, oh, who is this? It's THQ Nordic. Like you could just look at it that way.
Yeah.
They sold it to Embracer for $300 million, and that's the eye opener. Because they sold the IP and the studios, all the employees and the IPs for
Pretty cheap.
$300 million. Really, really goddamn cheap. It almost is like it's almost spitefully cheap in a way. Like, why wouldn't Square get more money out of that? That makes no sense. It is a cash buy. It is like a straight up cash buy, no debt acquired kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
I
that means like if there was any outstanding debt, Square's paying it off and then selling it, or what. But like basically, Embracer was like, oh, we're not taking on your debt. We'll buy this, but like we're not taking on any outstanding payments or anything.
Yeah, I wonder if this is just Square Enix sort of disregarding these IP. Like they don't care about these franchises.
Oh, and they don't. I mean, I think that's obvious
obviously
that they
Legacy
don't.
of Kain has been, a quote unquote dead franchise for however many years, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
It's been a long time, and I'm sure they're going to do a reboot,
Yeah.
because I don't know where else you would go with it. But Deus Ex is kind of odd one to consider dead, or Tomb Raider had that
Yeah.
really good reboot. I don't know about the sequel to the reboot.
Yeah, I made three, and Montreal did the third one because they were busy doing Avengers. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's
loved
what
in
happened.
the yeah, well,
That,
that is what happened. I loved how in the Embracer press release they're like Crystal Dynamics. They bring such great expertise. They did Tomb Raider. They did Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is the second game, and Legacy of Kain Defiance. I'm like, Legacy of Kain Defiance, a fucking PS2 game.
yeah.
like,
Look,
like what? And
they
then they're
have
like, yeah,
great
such
taste.
a great taste, and it's like they're not mentioning it. They didn't mention Avengers anywhere.
Yeah, because right, there's no way you can know for sure that the mouse is going to allow them to make more.
Yeah,
of those
apparently,
games.
like Disney, like it's up to Disney if they're going to be okay with Avengers is dead. And then one of the industry insiders. Let me see if I can pull up the name. I don't want to like just not have the name there.
Misquote somebody, get them fired, whatever.
No.
Journalistic integrity or whatever.
Basically was saying that. God, let me just find it. Anyways, point is, Industry Insider was coming out and is claiming that over the last few years, Square lost $200 million
Oh, that's
making
why the price is
Avengers
$300
and
million.
Guardians, and that's why the price is $300 million.
Yeah. They dug themselves out of that hole real quick, and they sold things at a discount. I mean, maybe
yes.
not.
Sorry,
a lot of
anyways,
that IP.
David Gibson, he tweeted, Marvel, that's the reason why Square sold its North American team for $300 million, because in a little under 2 years, they lost $200 million on 2 Marvel games.
Oof.
But it still looks like a low price given the optionality on probably 4 AAA titles coming through. Because he's saying like between the three studios, there was like 4 AAA games in development, and Embracers came out today and was like, "Hey, yeah, we got some big ass games coming." So it is weird that they sold it for so low, but yeah, this was a fire sale for Square. Apparently, they're just kind of like, we're fucking done. We don't care about these people. We don't care about these IPs. Some people have kind of said like, well, they've always struggled to sort of like they don't really know how to market it. Like they don't know how to deal with these. It's just so weird because I'm like, are you really that closed off to the global? Yes, you are.
Well, that
yes,
and
of
I mean,
course you are.
I know Japanese Japanese companies tend to have a hard time interfacing with Western companies, right? Like just in
Yeah,
general, isn't that just sort of a truth of the industry? Like the cultures are totally different in a lot of ways. So I wonder if maybe they were just kind of like it's a blessing. We'll pay off this screw up, and we'll no longer have the in their eyes headache of dealing with these guys. Because a lot of their Rockstar games, the stuff that they really like are proud of and feel known for, is stuff that's developed in by their Japanese teams, right?
right. And that kind of seemed like the language Square was saying in its
Yeah,
statements in
and
the
they want to go to
sale were
NFTs and shit.
right. And that was the big thing that I put out where like, in their press statement about it, they're like, we're gonna invest this into like new and emerging, blockchain market. Fuck you. Like, God.
We want to waste
Um,
our fucking time.
Yeah. In addition, the transaction enables the launch of new businesses by moving forward with investments in fields including blockchain, which is NFTs, AI, and the cloud. And when they mean AI in the cloud, they're talking about like using computational stuff for like programming or development. Technically it's like stuff to remove humans from doing.
Well,
Um,
I mean, what is it called? It's called like Azure, right?
yeah, that's Microsoft's cloud system.
Um,
It's meant to help and speed up game development. But like it's also kind of like there's also an insidious side to this where they're talking about like AI. What do you mean by AI? Well, let's look at that horrible ass Chrono Cross remaster that released. What
mhm.
did it use? Probably some basic form of AI upscaling, which is why it looks the way it does.
Well, one of the
So
big benefits of cloud development, if I recall right, is render times.
mhm.
Same for like visual effects
Yeah,
in movies.
that's
It's like
true.
you can
Yes.
render on the cloud because you have a giant server doing it.
Yes.
So your render times go way down. Your
Yeah,
resources
I'm
in
not trying
house.
to say like it's
Yeah,
all insidious. I'm just kind of like, well, it's kind of funny that they three things they list is blockchain, AI, and cloud. And
yeah,
I'm like, so NFTs and
cutting
things that
jobs.
are
Yeah,
both great for development, but also might redundant, like might actually cause like loss of development, loss of human developers. Like,
at first.
yeah, well, either way, like just I mean, we could just focus on the blockchain part where it's like $300 million to basically pay off this. So here's another thing we should probably say: how did it fucking cost $200 million to develop Avengers and Guardians? And I'm like, and that even almost kind of boggled my mind for a second. Then I'm like, let's think about this. Guardians probably didn't cost as much in general as Avengers, but it is known that Square Enix was in a bidding war with other publishers to get the Marvel Avengers license. Disney threw out, we want a big Marvel project. Who's gonna make it? Who wants the rights? And so, like kind of like an auction house, they had a bidding war between various different publishers over who would get the Avengers license to make an Avengers video game.
Well, don't
And
just stand there. Applaud.
yeah, and the person who won is Square Enix won, which means that they probably outbid Activision and EA and Microsoft and who knows who else, right? So that means they probably 50 million at least. They probably had to pay Disney 50 million, close to that or more
Just
than
to be
that,
able to make it. Ugh.
just to have the license because that's a big license. I mean, you're coming off of Infinity War and Endgame. Like this is going to be huge.
And then you douched it.
Um and then it's like, okay, and then you have to spend 50 to 100 million making Avengers because it's going to be a big game, it's going to be a big project, and it's a live services title. And what does a live service title means? It means you have to keep and retain staff on and
No.
constantly working on the game, and basically like the production for it never fucking ends. Um, and then you have to market it, and then you have to spend all that fucking money on that big ass booth they had at E3 that year. You remember that?
Yeah.
all the other stuff and all the marketing costs that go into it, because we have Avengers and we have to let like, tribes in the Amazon that do not contact humans normally know there's an Avengers game coming, for PS4 and Xbox One and PC. So
Yeah, and I don't know why they just dropped like loads of flat panel TVs into the Amazon to play the trailer, but there's no
Yeah,
power there.
no
So
power there. So yeah, like that's how that happens. And I'm not saying Avengers cost 200 million, but like it probably costs like the majority. It probably costs like 150 to 125 of that was all probably into Avengers. And then Guardians is kind of part of that. Guardians probably didn't have to spend anywhere close to the amount for. They probably still had to spend money on the IP, getting the IP rights from Disney,
yeah,
which was going to be less than Avengers because it's not Avengers. And then they have to they have to spend all the money in the development team, and then that game bombs because everyone's super got their hand burned on Avengers, and no one wants to double dip, even though the game's apparently really, really good.
well, yeah. Apparently, the Guardians game super good, worth it.
Super good, and it's a single player experience. It's not an online game. It's not a live service title. It just is what it is. Just a great single player adventure with a new take on the Guardians.
If it would have come out before Avengers,
it fizzles. Yeah. Boy, it really things might have been very different. But anyway, so causes a $200 million loss for Square, and then so Square just says, "Fuck it, sell both of those developers, sell them,
sell all
300
three,
million.
get rid of everybody." So here's my question though, and I guess it's a quick question, but what do you think of those named IP? Like, what do you think is the biggest potential for something fresh coming out of it?
Are you talking about sales or just what I would like personally like to see?
Well, both, right? I mean,
I would personally like to see a really nice AAA reboot of Legacy of Kain.
Yeah,
Personally,
that's the gimme.
I don't know if it'll sell.
Oh, I think it will. Oh, I think it
hard
totally
to say.
will.
It could go either way. It could go either way, honestly. But it has to be a legit single player story driven experience. It cannot be fucking Nosgoth, like this BR thing they're looking at and do.
No, that can suck dicks, but like a Soul Reaver or that, like, they're just cool characters.
Yeah.
The visuals in today's graphics would be super cool. Think about the world, like the world building you could do now without any of the limitations. Like, part of the reason that there was limitations on the older games is you couldn't build an expansive, creepy open world.
Yeah,
the
narrative was beyond the scope of the PlayStation 1. It just was.
And now they can really kind of do it. One of the things that I'm sort of like, what they could come back with is they could do, maybe not a reboot, but they could do an update of Deus Ex and enter the shooter market
Deus Ex is hard because I feel like it still definitely has its fans, and people really like the two Square-Enix Deus Ex games.
Yeah, and it's still relevant for sure.
It's only uphill. The uphill battle with Deus Ex is just the fact that Cyberpunk probably really burned people on.
Oh, see, I think the opposite.
It's hard to say. Like, Cyberpunk either made people hungry for a real Cyberpunk experience,
yes,
or it burned people out. I'm the guy who's like, I'm really hungry for this still. I really want this. Like, I love the idea of Cyberpunk, but like that game clearly just didn't. Neither. That's a whole fucking podcast on itself.
Just look at Cyberpunk as a blueprint of everything not to fucking do, and then just Deus Ex.
Right. And like, I'm still fucking bitter that Rocksteady's game is a Suicide Squad game. Yeah. Speaking of rumored people looking to be sold off, that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So Imram Khan tweeted, he's like, I don't have an article for this because there's no story yet, but he said that like apparently Discovery is looking. Warner's and Discovery had that merger, right?
Yeah.
And part of their $3 billion fat trimming initiative is they're actually trying to look into selling off its game studios. But here's the thing. Here's why it's not a story, apparently. They don't want to sell the IPs.
What?
They just want to sell the development studios and then license out the IPs like Disney does. So they want someone to spend the money to buy a studio of theirs and then give them more money on a per game basis, so that they, you want the Batman license.
Never going to happen.
Never, and apparently never gonna exactly, and that's why that's why there's no story because no one's biting, and I'm like, no fucking shit. Why would
Yeah.
anyone?
Because I could see if the IP was going with it, I think Microsoft would have snapped it.
Yes,
I think Microsoft would
yeah.
have just snapped it right up.
If it was going with IPs, like even if it's not like DC, but it's like if it's just Mortal Kombat, and the Midway properties that Warner Brothers owns, and Microsoft would be like, yes, I could see Microsoft snapping that, but that's not happening because basically like nobody's body. But anyways, yeah, like going back to Deus Ex, like I'd be hungry for it. Like I was saying, I'm still bitter that Rocksteady's making Suicide Squad and not Arkham Beyond. Like, why aren't we getting a big futuristic cyberpunk Batman Beyond game by Rocksteady? Why are we doing Suicide? Fuck.
It seems
like,
obvious, and there must be some reason why, but
well,
like it
because
seems
people know
obvious
it's
to me. Like
Suicide Squad is way more known in the public eye and image and everything. So I get why they're doing that, but like for me, I'm like, God, I wish I could see, what 10 years of game development in a cyberpunk Batman Beyond setting would have been. That's just what I want, right?
Yeah.
But as far as the other, like, I think Tomb Raider is the most visible and most obvious moneymaker for Embracer now. The last game didn't do too well, but it kind of came out in a busy time, and again, Square had no idea how to market it or anything, so um they have officially announced they are making a new Tomb Raider using Unreal 5. So that's happening. We know about that.
Look forward
And
to how pretty
apparently,
that's going to be.
and there are 3 other games in development, which could be like, we don't know. It could just be their 4 bread and butters, right? Like of the 4 AAA IPs that Embracer just got from Square Enix on like for fucking nothing. Tomb Raider we know is one of them for sure. The other 3 could be Thief, Deus Ex, and Legacy of Kain.
Thief,
that could easily
Thief is
be all 4
surprising
of
to
them.
me, but because Thief was dead for a long time until they remade Thief.
Yeah,
and it's just now all of a sudden
it is an IP they own now. So
yeah.
and of course there's the big one. Gex.
Gotta have Gex.
Gex can make his big comeback now.
I thought you were going to say that you're excited that Crystal Dynamics is going to continue to work on Perfect Dark.
I'm just shocked that this. That's the thing. That is actually probably the most surprising to me. Was like, oh, they're selling it to Embrace. Why aren't they selling it to Microsoft? Since they're working on Perfect Dark.
I think Japanese companies hate Microsoft. I think they resent
but they use
that Microsoft did well. Yeah, I just think they resent that Microsoft did fairly well.
Oh my God, resentment is a huge issue. We want to go back to Sega. Jesus.
Yeah, fair enough. We don't have time in this episode, but our next episode we can talk about resentment. That's for anybody who's looking forward to our next topic. Some news today about Nintendo came out. We're going to talk about that next week. But for now, hit us up on Twitter. Let me know what game from this buy sounds like easy sell, like, or an easy reboot. Legacy of Kain obviously is going to be our number one. I think that's just an easy one. It's ripe for it right now. And I think you will attract the most talent to it. That's the other thing I wanted to say. It is, especially in terms of like if they want to get like, Hollywood level talent. If you want it to be like that crossover Hollywood talent, which I don't necessarily give a shit about, but it has the potential. But yeah, hit me up at Funk Machine, PhunkMachine on Twitter, or hit up Matt.
Yeah, at Doom Assist Me on Twitter.
And let us know the IP you're most excited about Square Enix selling off, or maybe you think it's a catastrophe.
Yeah, again, we didn't bring it up, but like Embracer's very much they stated outright we're hands off.
Yeah, they're apparently great for creators.
Yeah, Embracer. Yeah, I didn't know they bought Dark Horse Media as well, but
yeah.
They said they target entrepreneurs with a successful record and takes a hands-off approach to them. This is a very quick statement from Embracer. From a commercial standpoint, we don't have essential commercial decision-making. Looking at other companies, they've struggled when they've put too many layers of directors and management and start controlling creators, and that's when they start falling apart. He doesn't want the company to be over-reliant on small number hit products. If you make one game, you have a big business risk. If you make 200 like we do, business risk is less. So
it's great.
Good on them. Shotgun approach and just stay the hell out of the way of the people who make the games.
It leaves open a lot of room for there to be actual creative decision making.
Yes,
You know,
and
instead
I
of
think
picking some profit goal or market goal, now
yeah.
they get to come up with real ideas, and you might actually see that. We'll see. We don't know. But for now, we have producers to thank. Producers for this episode are The Arnett, Scrunami, Top 35, Hyper Viper 89, Ziggy Z, and Online Persona. We'll catch you next time, dudes.
Thank you, dudes.